What the hell is that? I don't think anyone's supposed to see that. Okay. Hi, everyone. Let's make sure everything's working here. I had a little bit of a late start, so I apologize for that. Um, well, we're going to do things a little bit weird tonight, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. There I am. Hi. Hi, everyone. So here, let me. I decided to wear a suit again for this one. So how are you, everyone? Welcome. It's a little late, 8:03. Usually I do a little jamming and whatnot, but I think I'm going to save that for later because it's more pertinent for tonight's little performance. So, welcome. Hi, everyone. I see the usuals are there. Someone wrote takeout, which is funny because that's exactly what happened. I ordered pizza and it arrived like 10 minutes before the show. And I was like, I got to eat something. And I was trying to eat and get dressed and figure it all out. So that part I have to get better at. But then at least you know the truth, right? Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Twitch. Hello, Periscope. And wherever else you're watching this, I hope you are enjoying yourself, or it started with some sort of enjoyment. I don't know. It was all good. Now I feel all odd. You should have been here in the afternoon. I was rolling. But anyway, I digress. So what are we going to do? So tonight, I'm going to play you an EP. Oh, wow. Hold on. I always think about these things late. Hold on. I hope you like the room. It's getting better. I figured out a way to make it a little nicer. There's still daylight out, so not everything looks as cool as it should, but it's getting there. And for those of you who are out of the country, buenas noches. Gracias por venir. Yes, I can speak Spanish. Let me see if I can find this thing. Oh, here it is. Okay. By the way, I keep my cassettes in this lunchbox that says The Beatles, Yellow Submarine. I actually got it as part of a DVD set. So, this tape is actually so damaged now that it actually has plastic parts floating around in it. So I would have to literally open it up and try to fix it again, which I've done a couple of times. But this is a transfer that I have been working on for a long time. I've wanted to do this one for a while. And just to set the record straight, only one person who's listening right now has heard this in its entirety. No one else has. And it's funny because I don't know if you know this, but I have a site where I had a blog called claude.works. I still use it. But take a look at the name of this tape. Now it says 90 on it, which meant 1990, but in reality it was 1991 because the year had just ended. So technically speaking, we could say this was from 1990. And before we begin, I'm going to send something off. Hold on one second. I forgot to do something. Oh no. Oh no, Claude forgot. I have it somewhere. Give me a sec. Mm. Ah, doing a quick copy and paste. I plan. Oh. So I plan this to be fun in a weird sort of way. I'm going to tell a few stories, and I'll get into all of the details. But because obviously we're going to listen to the whole thing, which is really weird. Um, it's literally an album on its own. So I just sent you guys the PDF of all the lyrics if you want to follow along, and that's the book for it. So about this tape, Paul and I, this is before we had our own studio. We were still signed to Epic. We were touring on Peace, and we were just starting to write all the songs for Worth. So some of these are literally, they're Worth songs, technically speaking. And what happened was, because I didn't have a proper sequencer and I was using my ESQ1, which if you were in the show a couple of streams ago, you saw that I had the machine out and I was doing all the mutes and all that stuff. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you'll have to go and watch some of the older ones. I think it's 12, 11, one of those. Anyway, I digress. But all I had was the ESQ. We had borrowed the MPC from John's studio, and it wasn't mine yet. It wasn't my own MPC. And a friend of mine had lent me an MC909, which, you know, is a very, people use it a lot for acid house and, you know, that kind of thing. Although in this case, none of that. So I had a 909, and Paul and I went out to, I want to say it was Newport Beach, and I bought a Split 8, which was an old analog synth. And the first thing I wanted to do was reprogram the entire thing. Long story short, got the synth, brought it back, hooked it up to the 909, all that stuff. And within 3 days or so, I had written some songs. I practiced them all week long. And at the end of the week, this is the result. And 2 of these you will recognize because they're the earliest recordings of these particular songs, but most of these you won't. Anyway, without further ado, I'll start it off. This song is called Second Chances. By the way, I'm going in order, so this is how it is on the tape. No, more or less how it is on the tape. The tape is a little weirder than that, but I had to make some sense of it. So here we go. If all goes well. Second Chances. We'll switch to the overhead for this. track one. So that's the mood. It's very weird. It's going to get weirder. So that's Second Chances. So I have to tell you this story. It's in the PDF. I put it in the PDF because it's sort of relevant, but in a way, how can I put this? There's a lot of strange things that happen to get it to the point where it's at. So number one, remember, the tape is very damaged. So there were things that happened to the tape that I had no control over. One of those was that I think it was spliced in two places where I literally had to join pieces together. So that was hard enough already. Although, to be honest, I did that outside the computer. And then later when I transferred it, I did all the edits in the computer. So obviously I didn't cut cassette tape and try to, listen to it. But so that's the first thing. So the story that I'm going to tell you is actually really true. I met this woman who was about 80 years old, and she wanted me to transfer a metal vinyl record of her husband, her late husband. And basically what he had done is, I guess back in the 50s, you could cut your own record on a metal plate and then give it to somebody as a gift. It was like do-it-yourself records. Now, the caveat, of course, is that these records were 78s made out of metal. So basically, when you put the needle on, all you heard was literally. So what she wanted me to do was to transfer this record onto a CD or something of the sort and see if I could clean it up. Now, what happened was I could hear the guy's voice in the record, but barely. Basically, maybe about that much, and then the rest of it was just pure, solid noise. So one of the techniques that I used is something that I basically came up with on my own. I filtered out his voice only, as much of his voice as I could get. It's easier to do these days, but at the time that I did it, which I believe it was like, I want to say 2002, 2003. At the time that I did it, I had a very telephony, horrible sounding version of his voice, okay? And so I took his voice and then I created an impulse response from it. If you're a tech head, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not a tech head, I'm going to kind of explain it. One of the beautiful things that we have that we can do with technology in the recording side of things these days is we can sample or take a recording of a room or a piece of equipment. And what happens is this impulse can then be fed into the computer. So in this example, I did it in a way that it's not normally done. You don't usually sample a voice and turn it into an impulse. You usually sample a room, like a cathedral, so then you can use that cathedral on your recordings and put things in the cathedral. So taking his voice and turning it into an impulse was a really weird thing to do. But what I did was, I did this, and then I fed his voice back into itself. And lo and behold, somehow I could hear him singing. I don't know how it happened, but it worked. I was happy, but I thought that it still sounded too much like something like this and not enough of a recording like how she wanted it. So I cheated a little. I took an impulse response of my own living room, and then I put his voice in my living room, made the recording. Long story short, well, I'll get to the end of that story after the next track. So this track is called Dejection. You will find that a lot of these songs have to do with the Garden of Eden and things of that nature. So this is called Dejection. So you noticed a little bit of old Depeche in there. It's funny. Someone mentioned it, but I'll get to that story too because it's a funny one. So getting back to the other tale that I was weaving. So I basically played the record for the old lady and I said, here it is, straight transfer. She heard it. I knew she would be disappointed because obviously it was just pure noise and you could barely hear the guy. When I played her the manipulated recording, the one where I had cheated, I didn't tell her this. I just said, well, here's another version. She basically started to cry. She cried her eyeballs out. And she said, it sounds like it was then. I was there. I heard him. It sounded exactly like this. How did you do this? It's impossible, which of course it was. I didn't get into the details. I just said, look, we used some tricks and I tried to get what I could out of it. And this is what we've got. But she was really happy with it. So one of the things about these recordings that I'm playing for you is that how I remember them in the room and how I remember recording them was very different than the way that it sounded on the tape, which is one of the reasons why actually I'm not a big fan of analog tape. I know someone's going to be like, oh my God, I hate vinyl. I hate tape. I'm sorry. Kill me. I don't know. I don't like it. My reason, though, is very, very clear, which I'll explain right now. When I record something in my studio, however it is, it is. That means unless I turn it into an MP3 or something, if I give it to you in the same format that I recorded it in, you basically have an exact clone, an original of an original. It never degrades. Whereas tape, in time, it degrades, or the machine might degrade it the minute you record it. The minute you play it the first time, it gets degraded. The minute you copy it for a friend, it gets degraded. So every single time, it's losing quality. So why am I telling you this? Well, when I transferred these tapes, one of the things I heard was a lot of hiss, and I didn't like it. So I decided I would try the same trick out that I had done with the recording of the record, which was to take the entire thing, denoise it, which actually adds artifacts. When you denoise a tape, now you don't hear the hiss anymore, really, but you hear these little tiny sounds. So I thought, I'll take those sounds, I'll filter them out by themselves, I'll put them through reverbs and weird effects, and I'll feed them right back into the recording. So what happened is I got this weird stuff happening, and the tape got fatter, bassier, and I got more signal out of it. So it took a long time for me to get to this point, but I really wanted to make that transfer. So anyway, that's the story of how I transferred it. We are on track 3 now. So this song you guys might know as Emily, which is from the Recovered album. One of my favorites, but this version is the original, the very first version that I ever recorded. So here we go. Track 3. Oh, Emily. So that was Oh Emily. And I'm trying to read the comments and I was trying to respond to some and I realized that my chat died. So I had to restart that side of it without interrupting the audio. I hope I didn't. Someone wrote, oh, Steve, love that Emily was revisited for Recovered. Yeah, I tried to make, remember, Recovered was, that's another thing. Recovered, as many people may not know, was also part of this era of songs. So some of these were lost and destroyed, and I had very few recordings for Recovered. So this song was one of the ones I really liked. So I wound up, making sure that that one was saved. But this is the original. So it's too bad I don't see Robert tonight because the next one is for him. He would have liked it. But so, oh, hold on. Someone wrote that they're trying to contact me via email. Yeah, you could still contact me there. Oh, I see what you did wrong. It's not press@npop. It's press@npop.co. Try emailing me there. That's the real email. I don't know what email that is. I might still be using it. I'm not sure. I have so many emails. I have no idea. I have to get better at that. So once again, hi everyone. What we're listening to is an old 1991 tape of songs that you probably have never heard before. And by tonight's end, you'll be able to have it. I just have to push go and you'll have it. So hi everyone. I see Utah's in the house. El Paso, Dallas. I saw Argentina in the house. I saw Peru in the house. Thank you, Lalo, for being here. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por estar aquí. Estoy feliz hoy. Anyway, I hope audio is sounding good. I did my best today to get... Someone asked, are you going to release vinyl? I hate vinyl, so I don't think so. But I would do it for you guys. But at the moment, it's not in my plans. If I had my way, I would put out, this is what I would do. This is how I would do releases if I had the funds. So I'm going to tell you what I would do. The way that I would do a release is I would not do vinyl. I would do a book. So that a book would be a nice big thing. It would be full of all the lyrics, lots of pictures, and somewhere in there, you could pull out an SD card and put it in your computer. That's how I would do a release. Because at least I know that whatever I give you, it would sound exactly like it sounded in my studio. All this other stuff, sorry, it's just my opinion. I don't like it. I lived through that era. I hated records. They scratched. In fact, last night when I was listening to Robert, he asked me what happened to my record collection. I played them all the time. I used to love playing records. So by the fifth time, it's like, and skipping and all that crap. So no records. Sorry. Books. Think books. I'm going to figure it out somehow. Or I'll die and then someone will put out all the vinyl when I'm gone and I'll be turning over in my grave. Something like that. Anyway, this next one also shares 2 recordings. Last week I played one of them, but no one's ever heard this version except Steve. He heard all this in his car right before he took off to Florida. I don't know if he remembers, but we were in your car and I played this for you. All you kept saying was, so much bass. So anyway, this song is one of my favorites. But that said, it begs the question, why didn't you ever record it? If it's your favorite, then you should have had a really good recording of it. We never got around to it. The best recording we got of it was the one I played last week. But for some reason, this is the one that I love. So this is called In Your Smile, the original, from this tape. Okay. People still want me to get a turntable. I hear you, Mikey. Not going to happen. I may release vinyl, but I will not listen to it. It's just not my thing. Sorry. Someone wrote, I really miss the 90s. I miss the 80s and the 70s. And for that matter, the 60s I never got to experience. But then again, I can go back. It's just my way. But so yeah, that was In Your Smile, the original, very first ever recording of it on this. And yes, to answer somebody's question, at the end of the show, the minute the show's over, I'm going to push the publish button and you can grab it from Bandcamp. So it's going to happen. I do it right now, but I think all kinds of mayhem would ensue, so I'm not going to. I'm going to wait till it's all done. Besides, there's an extra bit that I have to do too. So back to the technical bits. So I was thinking about this today, that my dad and my grandfather were very influential people in my life when it came to music, even though they themselves were very, for lack of a better word, snobbish about music. They loved music, but they did not really tend to respect musicians, which is a weird thing. Neither of them wanted me to become a musician, but I had very interesting conversations with my father when I was very little. He would play something like, oh, what's that song? I think it's called Cherokee People. I think that's the song. I'm trying to remember the name of the group. Raiders of the, I don't know, some 1960s group. Anyway, he would play this song and then he'd be like, listen to this part, listen to this. What is this? It's clever, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. It's very strange. And usually it would be like some weird psychedelic thing where it would be a sound that went like, and I was like, I didn't know what it was either because I was a kid. And so he would point these little things out. And I find myself wanting to do that tonight. So I realize I have more of them in me than I really thought. So pay attention to the little bits, the weirdness, if you can. Because what I like to do a lot is take the sound and mess with it in real time so that things will happen. Anyway, but that's just my way. Next song is called The Warning Line. And it is next. Here we go. Oops. Wrong song. That was the warning line, track 5 of 8 on this EP that we're hearing tonight for the first time in God knows how long. I mean, I've heard it a couple of times, and Steve's heard it once, but yeah, so this is the first time ever. And yeah, like I say, I sound like a salesman now. And if you order now, no, I'm kidding. But after this is over, I'll make it available on Bandcamp. Um, so yeah, this is really, the whole thing is a very moody pieces. And so here's some more technical details before we go on to the next one. In case you're joining us late, it is a transfer from a tape, very old, very much destroyed, which has no repair really possible. I'm probably going to put this in some sort of painting and it'll become some sort of thing. I don't think that it can be salvaged any further. It sounds really bad now. The last transfer that I did basically destroyed it, I think. So yeah, that was, so someone brought up earlier that one of the songs reminded them of the old Depeche song Monument. And it is funny, but there was a reason why I did it. In most of these, what I did was I would take one little influence that I had of a favorite song and I stuck it in every single one of these. So if you follow the sounds or follow the mood, you would eventually find where the original idea came from. So for example, the most obvious is, Oh, Emily comes from the Pink Floyd song called Emily. Although it sounds nothing like it, but I wanted a piece of that song to be part of my life. So that's why I put it into that song. In this case of the song I just played, I was listening to a band called And Also the Trees, which I really like. It's a very gothic band, late 80s. And they had a song called Count Jeffries. And no, I don't think I have the. Anyway, they had a very heavy kick drum that was like boom, boom, like that. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a song with that sound to evoke that feeling back so that when I listen back to the song 20 years later, see, I do this crazy stuff. My idea was when I listen to the song 20 years later, it'll transport me back to when I first heard that other music and loved it. That's the idea. So that's that. So, someone asked me if the big boom was an 808. No, it was actually a 909 going through a cavernous reverb. Remember, if you're just joining us, these are the instruments. These are the players, as I call them, in the PDF. It was the ESQ1, Split 8, Juno 6, MC909, Tom, which I forgot to credit, the Tom, and the MPC 60, which was only really doing the duties of sequencing that day. It wasn't really, I wasn't using a lot of samples from it at all. I don't think there's a single sample on this. But anyway, next song. This one's called Time Space Shifts. So that was Time Space Shifts, 1991. Daniel Melville, I can never say this right. Melvold, on Facebook, he wrote, I like the thought provoking aspect, but I can only handle emotionally dark in doses. Worth has a great balance of dark and positivity, and that to me is anything Bucks or a Bucks. You're right. Um, it's not that it wasn't present here, it's just that day, that particular day, these were the ones that happened. And I didn't mention this earlier, but these were all recorded in one day. Every single one was done in one entire day, span of a day. So it's a mood. That doesn't mean that I won't go back to doing other things. Obviously, I did dancier things after this, and I did darker things before some of the dancier things. So it kind of fluctuates. I'm eventually going to do something. If you stay to the end, I promise there's something interesting that may or may not happen. But thanks for that comment. I liked it. Thank you, Steve, for posting the the link to the PDF over and over again. Because yeah, thank you. I'm gonna try and see if I can post it again. Hold on. I can do it. I swear. It's hard to keep up with all the different platforms and go back and forth. So I have to answer the chat. The best way for the chat not to crash is for me to just answer the question and it shows up on all of them. So sorry for that. If you're like, what was he talking about? I'm trying to make it so it doesn't crash. So that was Time Space Shifts. And I think for that one, I was listening to, I think that one's more along the Joy Division-y. Now this one, the one that I'm going to play next, is the second to last. For this particular song, what was the most interesting to me that happened was, I don't know how to explain it, but just picture this. So you've got the tape, damage, 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 noise, noise, noise. Somewhere in the middle, the most cleanest possible recording that I could have ever imagined on a tape. And then back to damage, 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 noise, noise. So this was the cleanest transfer that I got because it was literally really good. And I have no idea why. Because it shouldn't have sounded as good as this does, but the tape. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying yourselves. I hope this isn't too weird, but I thought it would be a more fun thing to do since, you know, we can go back to our normal things next week. By the way, next week is going to be pretty much the same kind of thing, but just you wait. Next week is going to be fun, man. So we go back to fun and laughing. But it's been a strange week. I will play this song and then we'll talk about this week. This one's called Differential 32. What a title.
Some people lock their doors and dream of life, while others feel the Sometimes I wonder if I see it.
And that was Differential 32, about being indoors and you can't leave, back in 1991. So this next thing basically is going to end it, but I need to explain what's going to happen here. Well, actually, I'm just going to play it and then I'll explain what's going on here. Here we go. I'm just going to play it. It's very short, and this pretty much will end things, but for something I've got planned for you that I hadn't planned until this afternoon when I heard it. But I will explain that in a moment. So this next one is technically an instrumental. And you may notice that if you have the PDF, you may notice that it's called Tape Cutoff Point. So it's almost self-explanatory, but yep. One more time. So, yes, I added some manipulation at the end because when it cut off even more horribly than that. It was like, dun, 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 dun. And that was it. And the tape ends right there. So this is what actually happened. I know the song because later I went to try to record it, and there is no recording with vocals of the said song. But the original title of this song was called In the Garden. And it was supposed to be the more upbeat, we're going to end it on a positive. It was going to be the uplift. And, the tape stops. So here's what I think happened on the day that I recorded it. I obviously was singing these words. I was trying to mix. I was trying to play with filters, do the levels, work the effects. Because I don't know if you understand, but everything that you heard for tonight was done live, straight to tape. So the weird effects on the vocals, all that stuff was happening in real time. So I had a lot to think about. So I think on this song, I must have sang lyrics. I must have been having a jolly good time trying to record it, enjoyed myself, not realizing that the tape had stopped. So imagine my surprise back in 1991 when I went back to listen to the songs and I'm like, that last one, I think that's the one. And then you find out that you killed it. And so that's what happens. So what I decided to do tonight was I'm going to end it off with a reconstruction of it, not the way it is on the tape, but the way that it came to me this afternoon. And I messed around and I figured out a way to do it. So we will end off with a totally live, which could totally suck version of In the Garden. So there is no other recording of this track. So what you get tonight, you get tonight. Let me get... Yeah, I think I want to use this camera because, I don't know. Because I have to face this way. I think it's easier for me. But this is not pre-recorded, so I could mess up. Ugh. Let's get in shape here. And let's hope I don't mess it up. Oops, I forgot something. Have to have my delay. I just have to. I worked so hard to get it. Here we go. One more time. In the garden where we used to lay, the scent of winter grass on our skins. No! I would do this all the time. One more time. One more time. I'll get it right. I think it's supposed to be faster. Let's try it faster. Now you know it's live. Yeah, it's faster. I'm not even sequencing. In the garden where we used to lay, the scent of winter grass on our skin. In the garden where we used to play, you and I alone bathed in light. Hey, if we found the path, would you block me from re-entering? If we could go back, would you lose your way with me? Hey, in the garden with a need to know, we found ourselves beings locked out. In the garden, a game of hide and seek. All we saw were ghosts of ourselves. If we found the path, who would block us from re-entering? Hey, if we could go back, would you lose your way with me? Hey, hey, in the garden now. In the garden now. In the garden now. In the garden where we used to play, the scent of winter grass on my skin. In the garden where we used to play, you alone bathed in the light. If we could go back, would you lose your way with me? And that ends tonight.